The Muscatine City Council will come to order. Greg, would you perform a roll call, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Spread. Phillips.
Present.
Bynum.
Present.
Shahade.
Present.
Natvig.
Present.
Fitzgerald.
Present.
And Raywalt.
Here.
6 present, 1 absent, Your Honor.
Very good, Greg, thank you. Folks, we have a pretty healthy agenda tonight, and we'll begin with our sister cities presentation. John DeBee.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Hopkins, council members, and city administrators. My name is John DeBeat, and I'm the Muscatine Sister Cities president here in Muscatine. And I do have some board members with me, Linda Milloy and Marshall McDonald. We are here tonight to talk about very important projects that we are ready to take on as a sister city with your support and with your blessing. So we're asking for your support and your blessing for this particular project. Basically, I can summarize the project as Sister City Permanent Display Park. I will talk a little bit about the history behind the idea, and then I will call on my friend Linda Milloy to talk about the details about the idea and the project. We started to discuss this as board members last year, and we got into too many ideas, and finally, we decided on one idea because we thought, first, it doesn't cost much, and two, it's easy to implement. And I gave you some copies of these materials. This design that you see in front of you, I think on the second page, is simply a design that we found through Sister City International that they have at the city of Phoenix, Arizona. We thought it would be nice to start with something simple like that. And as I said, my friend Linda will talk more about the project. So as I mentioned again, we are here to present the project to you. We are here to get your support and blessing. We already met with Greg, our city administrator. We discussed the idea with him, and we are talking about specific location, which is a small pocket park that the city owns on Cedar Street and 8 on that corner. So that's basically what we are talking about. So we are hoping that, as I said again, we'll get your support. We already raised some funds to at least start with phase 1 of that project. It's not something that is going to happen in one day or 1 week or 1 month, but we want to go like phase by phase, and it might take us a couple years. So with that, what I would like to do is I would like to call on my friend Linda Milloy to talk about the details. I will stand here also after that presentation in case any of you have any specific question for me. I will be glad to entertain that question and answer your questions. Thanks for having us tonight.
Mayor, Administrator Monsanger, and council members. I think an important thing to tell you first is we already have a little money for this project. That's always nice to hear. We were given a lovely memorial contribution from the family of Ralph Jackson, who was an early member of Sister Cities, and many of you may know him from his long years of living and working in Muscatine. We hope to get contributions and in-kind contributions by other individuals in the community. Thanks to Greg for talking to us about this place on the corner of 8th and Cedar when we were talking about this pole arrangement and where we could put it. His idea of putting it there was much better than the places that we had suggested to him. Sign Pro, a local business run by John Fox, which many of you may know about, has done the design that John has given you a copy of. From our logo, you have it there? Okay. We've taken our logo from our stationery and our T-shirts that they have put on these signs. We haven't exactly decided which of those three that we want, but we'll make that decision. John says that MPW is willing to provide a pole for us and install it, which is a great relief. Also, Sign Pro's cost to us would include the installation of the sign similar to the one in Phoenix that you just saw. Whatever design that you have of a landscape design is just something that I threw together in 10 minutes, and so I want you to know it's quite rough and it's not professional. And when we get to the point where we would need to provide to Park and Recs or whoever would be approving that particular design, we of course will have it done professionally. I have been talking to Keller and Keller about coming out and taking a look and giving us a rough estimate of that berm if we put a berm in the back. I do have already an Eagle Scout, prospective Eagle Scout, who would like to do his project for part of this park, and I'm going on Monday to talk to the leader of the troop and to this young man about the procedures that are required for Eagle Scout. I have an Eagle Scout son who's all grown up and an engineer, and so I know the steps that you have to go through. But he has to be involved in the planning and the procurement of some of the materials and things like that. And that couldn't take place until spring because it's too late now in the fall, not only for planting, but for this boy, if in fact the park is accepted and if we accept his participation, for him to go through the steps that are needed. So it's just a beginning for us. We'd like to call it the International Friendship Park, which we'd also eventually like to have a sign like that too. It would be nice to have a walkway in it. It would be nice to have benches there, but the city is offering to maintain the park. And so it would be important that however the design ends up being, it's easy for maintenance, so that the plants are ones that don't require a lot of maintenance, and that if there's grass, which there would be, it's easy to cut. Thank you, and I did not know I was going to have to talk tonight.
Put you on the
My
spot.
professor skills are coming through.
Thank you, Linda. And as I said, we are here, also to answer any question. I spoke to Sal at Muscatine Power and Water, and he agreed. I mean, thanks for them. They agreed to partner with us. He said he's going to look into the appropriate electric pole that we can use, and he even offered that they will use their own machinery to install that once the council approved this idea. So millions of thanks also for Sal and Muscatine Power and Water for also taking on that project and trying to help Muscatine Sister City with a project that will add really a great deal to our city, Muscatine, so that all of us can be proud of. And I don't know if you have any question for me. If not, millions of thanks for your support.
Any
John.
questions, council?
Yes, one. There are two poles on this chart. One is understandable to me. What's the other pole?
Is that a flagpole?
I think it was
Oh,
two
I think that you have,
An
you
alternate?
don't have both designs, because I did a design where the pole was near the corner with the prairie flowers, and then what you don't have is the one that was on top of it with the staple that you see there, where we put the pole in the middle. And so basically, it's alternative placements for the
Okay,
pole,
fine, thank you.
because no, we don't want two poles.
Yeah, it's
One-
either
one-
or.
One is high, is
Yeah.
fine, and also, we want to make sure it's high enough so that you can read it and see it, but that it cannot be vandalized. Which we wouldn't want.
Never happened in Muscatine.
On the,
Anyone else, council?
on the
Easily
picture itself or the drawings,
She hasn't seen a water tower.
what's the timeline going to look like? What's your projection?
Okay, for the first phase, if you give us the okay to use the location, as I mentioned, we do have the funding to start right away putting the pole, and and ordering all the signs and placing the signs. So we can do that within a month if you give us the okay. So we have to wait up until you give us the okay. So that will be the first step. As Linda mentioned, most probably, the landscaping and so on might be delayed till maybe next spring. But the electric pole itself and the signs and so on, we can do that within a month, hopefully, once you give us the okay.
Do you have a budget at this time that you can present to us?
At this time, I don't, but we can send you that. And as Linda also mentioned, the money for this for the signs, the top sign that reads Muscatine Sister Cities, and the signs for each country, we do have this money. It was a donation by one of our founding members' family. So we will have a plaque, special plaque, to also recognize that family for their donation towards that project. We are hoping.
Also, depending upon how generous some people are in the community that I've approached about
Yeah.
contributions of dirt and other things, we might be able to put the berm, if you decided you liked the berm in the corner by the residences. We wouldn't be able to plant any grasses unless we could get them in by the end of September, the early part of October, and that's pretty much pushing it. So it might just be the pole that we get in. If we do that this fall, we just might wait and do it all in the spring.
So the location, it's Cedar and 8?
Yes.
Is that property owned by the city?
Yes.
So that's the corner on the left there, going up there?
Is that Papoose Creek under there? Yep.
Yes.
Dump trucks on there unless it's frozen.
No, I don't remember the house there.
And if you would like us to send you how much it will cost us for the signage, all the signs and so on, we can provide you with that. The good thing about it, like from the pictures that I put on the screen there, the idea is to have each country flag, the name of the city, the name of the country, and it will be pointed towards that country. So that's the whole idea of this permanent display.
Anyone else, council?
Greg, we should assume we're already mowing it, huh?
We are already maintaining it, and we have 3 trees that we planted. The idea was to keep that a low-maintenance area, and this really seems to fit with that and dresses up the area a little bit as well.
Okay.
Again, anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, thank you.
Folks, our next presenter is here as a result of an invitation from our Councilman Raywald. So at this time, I turn the floor over to Councilman Raywald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very, very brief because we have a full agenda. Tonight, I'm here to introduce Bill Boom, Alderman Bill Boom from Davenport, who is the author of a housing code that's been successfully implemented for the last 7 years in Davenport. I want to stress that this is not a code that punishes anybody. It doesn't punish landlords. It doesn't punish tenants. It helps them both. It has lots of other auxiliary benefits. Number one, it protects property values and increases property values of all the neighbors around rental housing. And number two, our first responsibility is public safety. And they found over 7 years that it's had a dramatic effect on decreasing crime. So I will be quiet right now and introduce Bill Boom. He's an electrical engineer. He's been on the council for 4 terms in Davenport. He's 39, but he's been in Kiwanis for 45 years. And a Commodore, rank of Commodore in the Coast Guard Auxiliary. So I'll be quiet and let Bill take over. Thank you for coming, Bill.
Excuse me.
Not a problem.
It's just, you're all done? All right, thank you.
Very good. All right. Your Honor, Council, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank Councilman Raywald, for inviting me down tonight to speak with you. Actually, this is the second time that I've been in Muscatine to talk to you, to some of your council, some of your staff about this program. I'll apologize, there's no color in it. I kind of threw this together today. I'm one of those last-minute type people. I work better under a deadline. I got it. So, you know, we'll put up with that. Also, I'll apologize in advance for crowing because this was a 2-year effort and involved an awful lot of people besides me. I chaired a committee of people, cross-functional team, to put this together, but yeah, it was kind of my vision. So, to get you in the mood and to get you to understand, let me give you a little timeline of what we were facing. Like many cities, pre-2006, we had significant rental problems. The City of Davenport has rental unit quantities that rival a lot of universities. With that, obviously comes a lot of disruption to neighborhoods because we weren't doing a good job of taking care of public safety and handling things. We did have an abatement program. That is an ordinance which I've provided to your council that actually backs up this, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we delve into the program a little bit more. But the problem was we had no methodology of implementing an abatement. You know, we have 4 lawyers in our staff of a city of over 100,000 people. They're very busy, and it took a Herculean effort to get staff involved to actually process an abatement. So what that did is it left it up to the neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods that were fortunate enough to have advocates to drive home an abatement and actually get a problem taken care of, other than actually arresting some people and that type of stuff. But again, that's like whack-a-mole. You know, it chases the problem around. A lot of times these actions took a year to finally accomplish. And by that time, obviously, we had neighborhoods that were in turmoil, and we had a lot of very angry residents in the city. You know, and the call was always for more police, more police. And as an engineer, when I put things together, you know, I try to be holistic in how we approach this. And I noticed that on your agenda, you said Davenport Housing Code Review. As Councilman Raywald said, this is really a program. It is designed to address a number of issues that I perceived and other members of the cross-functional team perceived, and we put together a holistic approach that addresses many of the issues. So it cuts across a lot of different staff functions within the city, because that's how we decided to divide up that situation. We had a strong landlord, or I'll call it slumlord group, operating in Davenport at the time. And there were 2 groups. There was this Davenport Association, and then there were a whole bunch of landlords that were really embarrassed by some of the stuff that these people pulled. Some of these people would buy a house, flip it, make about 20 grand, and then throw it into the local politics and the local elections in Davenport, disrupting a lot of stuff and creating a lot of hate and discontent. So it was not a comfortable time in the city of Davenport. And it's one of the reasons we still suffer from 2-year terms, is because we used to have a lot of volatility on our council, and it really held us back from growing like we have recently. And again, with a lot of this going on, crime was rampant. And the calls for service were exceedingly high, higher than what we would like to see, and our call times were really long. And again, we had a lot of public discontent because of that. So Advance, actually what happened was I ran for city council to replace an alderman that was one of the troublemakers and lost by 9 votes. So I had some time on my hands. I got appointment to Plan and Zone Commission to keep me busy and keep me visible, but we had something else going on in the city, and that was a citizens initiative called the Davenport Action Initiative. And it was a city-sponsored program that they actually borrowed from Dubuque, and it empowered citizen groups to work with city staff to address problems within the city. And I happened to end up as one of the neighborhood chairs of one of the committees, and I decided to take my committee focus and address this rental problem that I saw, because it was all around me in my neighborhood too. I approached the mayor and the city administrator, and I'm getting ahead of myself. Right after that time, in the spring of I believe it was 06, the city council disbanded the neighborhood enhancement office. And that was the inspection group that was the safeguard for the neighborhoods. We had problems with that group too. Several of them ended up in court, being taken to court for, accusations of corruption, et cetera, by, again, some of these landlords that we were having problems with. But it gave a bad taste in the mouth of council, and, it led to the dissolving that. And as much as the neighborhood didn't like the neighborhood enhancement office, it was their only safety net. So now we had 200-300 neighbors showing up at a meeting demanding, what the city was going to do. They ended up giving that responsibility to the fire department, thinking that that organization had better structure and more discipline, and they already inspected buildings, so let's go ahead and give it to them. Well, as it so happens, my next door neighbor is one of the fire chiefs, and it looked like it was going to fall to his responsibility to lead up this effort. So I went over and we sat down and we talked. And that's when I approached the mayor and the city administrator, and I said, you've empowered the Davenport Action Initiative to do these types of things. Let me lead this. If you need my credentials, here they are. And they gave me the responsibility to do that. I picked a cross-functional team, including police, fire, public works, several departments of public works, representatives of the unions. We had landlords represented, and we had other neighborhood people represented. So it was truly a cross-functional team, and we were very careful in how we selected these people to make sure that our work product wouldn't be challenged when we got done. So we established the committee and we started to work. We held about a year's worth of public information stakeholder meetings with all the various groups that wanted to, and we just kept doing it until they finally decided that they'd given enough input. We took some time and developed a process that we thought addressed a number of the issues, and we came out with a tentative program, and then we ran that around the community to get, again, stakeholder input, especially this time from the landlords, because this was their opportunity to make sure that there was some WIFM, what's in it for me, in the program. During this time, I briefed council several times on the process and the progress we were making. In the fall of 2007, I did get elected to city council, so then I was able to put my other hat on and do a cell job, something like I'm doing here with you tonight. So I led that effort to council adoption, training of staff, and implementing the process. So really, we started, I believe, in maybe late '08, early '09 with this program. We planned in corrections. So we had built-in safety valves to, in case this thing came off the rails, that we could blow the whistle. So we had planned in advance to have corrections to the program just to make sure that it was viable. So, what were the concepts that we addressed? The first and foremost thing is that You need to view rentals and that whole process as a business. You know, a lot of people think, yes, oh yeah, the big apartment project, or big apartment complexes are definitely rentals, but the mom and pop stuff isn't. And, you know, that isn't really true. And if you look at it as a business, because you are taking an income and you are providing a service, just like any other business or like the city, you need to have some standards. And you need to have a way to correct when it comes off the tracks. We had landlords running the program. The inmates were running the asylum. And their big thing was to get out, they wanted 6, 8-year inspection cycles because we're a good landlord, because all they were addressing was code. And many of the inspections, you know, multiple re-inspections, it was like clawing with their teeth to finally get past it. But hey, I passed the code, I'm a good landlord. Because that was their only criteria for evaluation. So, because they were a business, the first thing we did was we said we need to establish a landlord license. That allows us to deal with landlords and all of their properties. Because if we have a landlord that is not following the rules, are causing problems, then we need to be able to revoke something. And by giving them a license, we had something to take away. In Davenport, they need that license before they can go out and rent property. And there are conditions that go with that, and I'll show you that as we unveil the program. We also established a license for every property, and in multiple unit properties, every unit, so that we had something to take away from the landlord if they did not properly administer the program. So that way, a landlord, if something happened, and sometimes it's, you know, it's a mix of problems, but maybe they're in the learning process, they could have a property, an individual property abated, and still have others up to code and in production. But when they have a unit that has a revoked license, that landlord can no longer rent that unit in the city of Davenport until that problem is abated. The key element, I think, is the rental metrics. Yes, code is important. You know, we're not denying that. But it isn't the only thing that rentals cause in a neighborhood. So, in addition to problems with the building itself, tenants create environmental issues, junk, garbage, other things that create a problem for their neighbors. Okay? So, we felt it was important that tenants, and then ultimately the landlord, if they could not get their tenants to comply, need to address environmental issues. And again, that's why this was a cross-functional team. So I had people from solid waste, I had people from our natural resources that were on this committee to make sure that we were getting the most bang for the buck for the city, as well as for the residents and the public. The big element is behavioral. So, the biggest problem that we have with rentals, and I'm sure it's the same here, is the behavior of the tenants. Loud noise, parties, drug dealing, all of that. I don't need to elaborate. So, we figured out a way to address the behavioral portion. We knew why we were failing. I figured out why we were failing. So, but we put that into the program. And then we found a way to automate the system. Using current technology, we wrote programs that automated the system and allowed us to capture data that was acceptable in court. We've had this for 7 years. We've never lost. We've never been challenged, and we've never lost. Well, obviously, if we haven't been challenged, we couldn't lose, but it has never been challenged. and it saves us money. It is efficient. We don't have to sit there and go through things to say, geez, there's a problem. We don't have to wait for neighbors to get so upset that they come with pitchforks and torches to City Hall to complain that we aren't taking care of a problem. So we push data at staff. We push data at PD and our inspections department that says enough is enough. I mentioned the cross-functional team approach. IT was crucial in this because we relied on a number of IT elements to pull the data together and to make sure that we tracked it properly and have everything in a category. And I'll show you some screenshots of some of the stuff that the IT put together. We host a landlord interface on our website. So our landlords deal with the City of Davenport through our website. They register their properties, they get their code, they have a code that they can get to the back side, a workable side of our website. And they can put in the requests for inspections, they can do all of the business that they need to do with the city via the website. Again, tremendously more cost efficient. We used to have, the NEO office had 3x5 cards. Every property was a 3x5 card. If you walked down the hall and dumped it, which happened one time, it took them days to put that back together. So this keeps the records. The cost of the inspections, cost of re-inspections, fines, and reinstatement costs. If they lose the license, if a landlord loses the license, I believe it's $500 to get it back, on top of any other inspection fees, on top of any other penalties that might go with it. We want landlords to know that you need to follow this policy and this program. And you know what? If you do, we will support you. We'll get to that in a second. A key element of this is the abatement process. And I will go through that. That is an ordinance that we have that allows us, and again, it's been run through Iowa Code and tested several times. That actually gives a city the ability to stop something that is undesirable. And it doesn't make any difference if it's rental or owner-occupied or business. We use the abatement process, and I'll go through that. Another important thing, we hired a paralegal to handle this process. So we don't have a full person in our legal staff doing it. They're actually a paralegal assigned to the new Community Services Division. That's after the fire department gave it up. We put a department or a group back together. And that person works integrally and makes sure that we are safe in what we do when we issue an abatement. Okay, for the landlord. The first thing we have is we have a crime-free multi-housing training. And it starts with a full 8-hour class, and there are subsequent qualifications that they can also take. This explains everything in the program for the landlord. So there's no more question, geez, I didn't understand. I don't know how. We also put a lot of the information and the support features for the landlords right on our website. So there is, and I'll show you a screenshot of that. There is a place where if you want to do an eviction, click here and it gives you all the information that you need and what the city will do to support you in an eviction. Here's a big one, and this is one that's missed by some of the cities that have tried to implement this. Oh, excuse me, let's go to number 2, I'm sorry, got out of line. Action plans. We try to be flexible with property owners. We could say, yes, you need to do the roof, and you need to do this and this and this, and code will take you so far, but you really tell them, look, to do this right, you and I both know you really need to replace the siding on this part of the house, or whatever the situation happens to be. We have provisions that allow us to extend the times allowed to make repairs. We'll make accommodation. Yes, it's wintertime. No, you're not going to do the roof. You know, so we are flexible in how we administer. But it takes the landlord and the inspector sitting down and coming to an agreement as to an action plan. So what this does is it gets you the maximum amount of improvement because there's a give and take. Hey, if I'm flexible with you on making these repairs because you say it's going to take you 6 months because you're going to sell this house or whatever it happens to be, fine, let's put that down. Let's both sign that. Okay, so we enter into a contract. It's a working relationship with landlords. And here's the one that a lot of them miss. Free background checks. We provide background checks for landlords for free. Now, we use volunteers to do that. We have volunteers in policing. And one of the job opportunities in VIPs is we have a core of VIPs. I don't remember how we have now. I think it's maybe 20, 25. A lot of them are retired police or retired other public safety, retired military, and their wives. They're the ones that direct traffic. They're the ones that do other things. But a big portion of what they do for the city, and very valuable, is they do these background checks. Now, let me say this. We don't tell the landlord how to do their business. We explain what we expect from them, and then we let them do it on their own. So what we say is, you're responsible for the people that you select as tenants in your apartment. Because remember, you're running a business. So you're responsible for those tenants. We suggest that you have a background check. In fact, we'll provide that background check for free. Many of them opt out, especially the bigger businesses, because they hire people that do that for them. So they have a system. But this is great for the small landlord or the single landlord because it's a free service. Now, the landlord, no matter what that comes back, it might say, no, don't rent to this guy. Look at all this stuff. We actually don't say that. We just put it out there. Theft, assault, drug dealing, whatever it happens to be. Here's the list. Here's the response from our background check. The landlord still has the right to rent to them. But, man, that's a red flag to us. So we're definitely going to be watching that property for problems. If we have problems with a landlord, that's one of the mandatory things that we can add, is a condition that they must now use our background checks. See, if we have problems, we turn that screw just every little bit. As we continue to make it tighter and tighter on them, remember, they're running a business. I don't know what you do with the other businesses in town, but you want that run well, and you won't have as many problems. Okay, here's a huge one. And again, IT really makes this work. We used to have a box sitting in the police department, and it was about this tall, and it had a sheaf of papers in it about this high, and the top, I'm going to say 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, were all, orange, and the current corners are rolled up, because those were the rental report forms. So when an officer went to a rental and had a problem with a rental, they were supposed to fill this out and file it. Well, remember, I said the box was full and it was not used, obviously. So one of the things that we felt was necessary was to automate this process. We know where every rental is in the city. And when our police are dispatched, or our fire is dispatched, or any of the other departments that interface with the public are dispatched, if it's a rental, poop, something comes up on your screen. In the squad car. And we'll show you a screenshot of that. So we make a quick evaluation. Is this a founded call? Is it legitimately violating some code or ordinance? Should these people not be doing what they're doing? Founded, unfounded. Because what we used to do before is just look at the police. Oh, we had 37 police calls. Well, sometimes Mrs. Kravitz, looking through the blinds, you know, likes to call a lot. And we try to separate that because we can evaluate this because we capture it electronically. So we start getting a lot of unvalidated calls from a particular place. Now we have a different conversation that we have to have with someone. So all calls for service, all computer-aided dispatch, automatically pushes a screen to the squad car. And it's a very simple thing. Radio button clicks and a few keystrokes and they're done. They don't have to go back and try to write a report several hours or many hours later and then not remember the details or can't find the name or, yeah, well, maybe we just won't, I got to get going. We don't write that one up. This allows officers still to have the same discretion, but they're forced to make a decision. Is this situation a founded or unfounded situation? That keeps us out of court. The other thing is that any infraction that happens with a rental, actually all properties, but we key in on rentals because this is a rental program. So if we have problems where neighbors call and we have to go out and mow the lawn because we have a 9-inch ordinance, if we have to go out and pick up extra garbage, if we have to whatever, all of that gets fed into this system. Everything has points. So as a property accumulates points, that's where we push data. All of a sudden, we push data to the inspection department. We push data to PD and say, here's your problems. PD might already know about this, but sometimes things happen in quiet neighborhoods, and it doesn't reach it, or there's a lot of cracks in the sidewalk for information. So, we do tie that stuff to property, but we also do some other things like we notify landlords as soon as there's a problem. So if we have a call for service, boom, notification goes to the landlord, hey, there's a problem at one of your properties, and here's what happened. We support landlords in proper evictions that are following our program because it is integral. So we will send a police officer, we'll send an inspector to court to support, and we will say, yes, these were founded calls, here's the evidence. It's, you know, the lawyers can't pick it apart because, well, I don't know, there's 25 calls, but, you know, that neighbor, these are founded calls. Whether they issue a citation or not, they're founded calls, and they accumulate points. One of the things that, you know, obviously that's good because then the landlord gets it through in one cycle, and then if it's clear and present, then it's a 3-day, and we're there to help them take care of that because it's in our best interests. And then when we do have landlords that do uphold this program, do a good job of running a business, then we extend cycles, longer cycles for inspections, which is their ultimate goal because it costs them less money. It's our intention to cost a landlord less to operate with us unless they prove that it should cost them more. And what that does is it keeps it less costly for the good landlords in your city. Obviously, the rewards for the city, we actually had 7 of our slum landlords within 1 year left town. They did. And that was the group that we needed to bust up, and we did. Using the team approach, we assigned things out, so the inspectors didn't handle everything. We had environmental people handling environmental stuff, PD handling PD stuff. You know, whatever department was touched for a call for service, we were using the qualified and trained people that were in those departments because that's their job description to begin with. This just helped formalize their workday, and it also kept track of it. So we knew what was going on. Improves quality of service. Technology reducing costs. You know, it really did take the cost out of a lot of this. And, you know, it helped because we're doing that throughout. We're getting rid of all the old legacy stuff, and we are improving and pulling our systems together. We just have to because otherwise the cost is too high. And the accuracy goes without saying. Rental housing stock improvement, again, getting some of these people out of town, going with the action plans. We got more out of landlords as far as improvement of their properties. And, you know, it really has helped. You can see it. It's palpable. I didn't say that correctly. In the neighborhoods. We actually have had, I'm not sure the starting date, since our council was impaneled 7 years ago, we've had over a 50% reduction in crime. Now, we're just being very simplistic here. These are FBI stats. So you know what I'm talking about, it's the crime index. We are not going to take the time to say, well, this is down and this is up. But if we are trending on the FBI crime index for the entire city, actually we are at 65% reduction in crime since we instituted that type of recording and this program. So we're very proud of that. Again, what you may say when you look at this is, man, this is costly. But you gotta look at the intangibles, and you've gotta look at the cost of service, the cost of police calls. I mean, when we sat down and looked at this, you know, we evaluated all of those metrics, and we said this is going to save us money in the long run, and it's going to provide us a better city, and it has done that. Faster response resolution at reduced cost. Obviously, this is an automated process. Neighbors will get involved. We will work with neighbors, and we have a lot happier neighbors. And a real side benefit from this, because of the engagement, because of being proactive, we actually have created a much tighter network between our citizenry and our police department. And that has netted us tremendous information flow that is solving more and more, especially our gang and drug issues that we have. So we have created a network because our PD is now seen as a service provider rather than just that, you know, person that gives you a ticket. And it really has helped. I mean, I currently am chair of community development, but I came off of 5 years of chair as public safety. So working with police and fire to implement this, and you know, it has improved and reduced their calls for service. So we can do more with less. Taking a peek a little bit under the hood, here's your municipal authority to abate. I don't have to read it for you, it's there. It goes way back to the Order of the Kingdom. But it is the basis that we use to address problems. In Iowa Code 364.12, a city may abate a nuisance, public or private, in any reasonable manner. We have a nuisance ordinance that basically says whatever poses an unreasonable threat to the health or safety or interferes with the comfortable enjoyment of life or property in an unreasonable manner or causes annoyance or distress to a reasonable person of normal sensitivities. So it is that's the standard that we are trying to hold up for our neighborhoods. So this section of our code is how we gather that together. And you can see we've got it pretty well boxed in. What we do is when we have a nuisance, our nuisance attorney sits down and sits with PD, sits with the other departments that are involved, and writes up an abatement letter that is tightly boxed. So if it is kids running around the neighborhood, it addresses kids. You will not have your children running around the neighborhood. Whatever it happens to be is very specific, and the penalties for doing that are laid out. So it would be eviction for the tenant if they fail to abate, and if the landlord does not abate, does not take action on this over a period of time, they will lose first their rental ability on that unit, and they can gain it back, but it's going to be costly. And if they are egregious in multiple units being suspended, then we go after their license and take that away. And then they lose the ability to own rental well, not own it. They can own it, they just can't put it into production in the city of Davenport. Our general nuisance definition includes the property, but it also includes within 1,500 feet of the property. So this eliminates them standing across the street and badgering or taking their problems just off the property line onto somebody else's property. Those calls are tagged back to the property or to the individuals. It involves all interested parties or permittees, the landlords, the tenants, or their guests. There are 3 levels when it comes to crime. There are things that are clear and present danger. You only need one of those, hasta la vista. Something of a less nature, 2, and then the less nature, 3. Minor infractions of environmental or other things, again, accumulate points, but it takes longer to force an abatement. Email notification, once a property reaches threshold, again, we push data to our staff, so our staff doesn't have to go in and looking where are the problems at. But we also push this to the landlord. The landlord is kept appraised all the way through the process, so they know what's going on. They can't say in court, geez, I wasn't aware, because we have all this data captured. And they have been trained. Here's a screenshot in the squad car. So you can see that it's very simple. A lot of radio buttons, no action taken, verbal warning, citation, or arrest. The big one here, founded or unfounded. And then some information, comments. And there are additional screens if they really need to get a little bit more detailed, if they want to do it right there. Generally, they're busy and they want to go on to another call. So they get the basic stuff here, they hit go, and then computer-aided dispatch gives them their next call. Here is the online portion that the landlord would fill out for a background check. They provide us this information, and then our volunteer VIPs take this and run the background check and provide the data back to them. Here's a rental property information screen, and if you notice, 3-day notice for clear and present, 3-day notice for non-payment of rent, 3-day notice to quit, 7 and 7, I don't even know what all these are, but every instruction is clearly identified for the landlord and tells them exactly what it is that they need to do to comply and how we will help them. Here is that backdoor portal. So they would put in their parcel and their number, and they could gain access to it. And again, there are a lot of other screens that they fill out online, and so we have everything captured. Here is a tree of how this actually works in the field. So we have a dispatch call from 911. We actually now, all of our calls, if you want a police officer, you want anybody like that, you have to call 911. And it's because of the computer control that we have and the record keeping that we have that we use that. It is no longer just for emergencies. I'm not sure if that's true here or not. If it's a rental property, an electronic form will appear in the squad. If it's a founded call, we go down this path. If it's unfounded, we stop. Still record that, but it's an unfounded call. We just know that we got a call. And if we get too much of that, then we come back and we start looking at why did we get that call? Because we can go back through 911 and we can pull those records. They're electronic. If it's a founded call, I've gone through this. CSD is our Community Services Division. That is made up of the inspectors and that nuisance attorney. Generally form letters and do all that other stuff. And we go on down the path. Also, you can come in on a citizen's complaint and activate the system in that fashion. That's a rapid fire of what we do in Davenport. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You had an initial investment of more people, even though you had some volunteers, but you've been at it for quite a few years. Is it a net savings now at this point
Oh,
to the
yeah.
city?
Well, and again, you can measure that in a couple different ways.
I mean, of the
We
ones
look
that-
at the crime stats, we look at the calls for service, and all of that is down. We look at our citizen survey, and that is done by an outside firm every 2 years. We have had double-digit increases in like 15 categories, and while the nation trends down a couple of points, we trend up 5. So we are beating the national average on customer satisfaction. We know the effectiveness. We have also seen it, I was speaking with your community development director. Since we've implemented this plan, and it's hard to correlate this, but the city of Davenport has enjoyed $1 billion worth of new investment in the last 7 years. Half a billion of that is downtown. So it makes a big difference in how your city looks, and how your city responds, and how your citizens feel. And we've never had that type of growth in the city of Davenport in our history. So, how you tie it all together, I think this is a key element. There's another program that I wrote that is called Davenport New Neighborhood Empowerment and Wellness, which I think has also had a lot to do with that. But we put it all together, and we think it's a successful program. We've had multiple cities within Iowa query us on this, and we've had, I know Cedar Rapids has come in. I was in that presentation. They have adopted portions of it, but not all of it. And they're not having as much success as they would like. We have someone that is the president of Landlords of Iowa. Happens to live in Davenport, comes to every single council meeting, and he reports back that he goes out and visits with these other cities, and he tells them about this program. So we actually have no idea how many are working on something like this or portions of this, but he does tell us that we do it right, and they fully support this as the State Landlord Association because it does help them. So, other questions?
Bill, the Cedar Rapids situation, they're trying it piecemeal and it's not one.
That's what I understand. I've not followed up with them on that, but it's my understanding from listening to the landlord president that they implemented portions, they did not do the background checks, they did not implement certain elements. And again, this was very carefully crafted to address as many issues as we could and as many requests from staff. There are things that were written into the program that did not get implemented. One of them is a tenant registry. It was felt that there was not enough protection from FOIA on individual names. It really is our intention in the long run to be able to capture and actually tie behavioral issues to individuals. We know the program's been successful. We've had a number of people now taking up permanent residence in hotels on the outside of town. And we also have gotten calls from neighboring communities complaining about what the heck are you doing to us? So, the impact of the program, I think, is obvious.
Don't get too far from the microphone.
Oops, I am sorry. I tend to
So
broadcast
then,
a lot.
one other quick question. Are most of the landlords, in your estimation, okay with this after this many years?
Yes. Yes, they are.
You've pretty much weeded out the slumlords for the good landlords.
Well, we show them the proper way to run a business. We don't try to tell them how to do their business. We give them an opportunity to do their business and work with the city in a partnering fashion rather than being at odds. And the ones that I talk to find that to be refreshing, because we help them along the way. When they have problems, we're there. As long as they're following our rules and complying with the program, then we're here to support them. And I have not had, and as chair of public safety, I would ultimately be the one to hear about all that stuff, and I have not heard negative comments from landlords at all.
So you've spent a lot of time and effort developing the IT portion of it. Now, do you rent that program and support it for other cities?
We have a very crafty IT department. They're also very collaborative. I'm sure there are questions that we're going to have as we start to roll out our broadband initiative. You guys have a utility that we are very covetous of, so we may be here asking you questions about how you proceeded on that, and we're doing that right now. We've hired a consultant, so by December we're going to be rolling out that. So, I think our IT is happy to share stuff. They'll tell you how they did it. It's not all that difficult. Actually, we did run into some problems. The county, when we established a joint 911 system, overruled the cities that were involved in it and picked a software program that guaranteed it would do everything and didn't, and we lost data for almost close to a year. And that hurt. And we saw backsliding, we saw increase in crime because they knew that not that we were asleep at the switch, but we didn't have all the tools in the toolbox. We managed to overcome that with the company that provided the software, and again, we are getting our data through our 911 dispatch. So, again, I'm not sure how that works, but there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. I just think the individual elements of the program are all important because it's got to be a shared responsibility. We have a responsibility for public safety and for development of our communities and the good of the cause, and they want to make money. And when those two organizations can work together for a common cause, it's better than fighting them. And it's a lot better on our city council elections when we don't have, all the robocalls and all the negativity thrown at the council. And it's really helped, again, I think with our community development, we're looking a lot better to developers and people that want to invest in our city.
I have a question and a comment here. So this program here, it's way beyond and above the ordinance and the codes that the landlord are utilizing.
Building code.
Building codes. This is way,
Yes,
it is.
this combines three elements: code, behavior, environment.
So, and the landlord, they are in the business to make money. And the more regulation you put on any business, it's not good.
Oh, I would tend to disagree. I
The
think,
more regulations, the more, in a way, I understand the program that you are establishing here, but
yes.
fully
I think what you'll find and what we found is that the majority of landlords want a fair shake. And if someone can get by not doing things, not mowing lawns, not maintaining properties, then it's less costly for them to operate, and it's hard for the ones that try to run a good business to operate in that environment. So what we have generally found is that landlords appreciate an open and fair and transparent process from government, but also a level playing field. Now, if you think that problems with tenants on police calls and behavior does not have an impact on your business, then I would have a different discussion with you. The same thing is true with environmental. If you have garbage piled up, you have a tremendous impact on that neighborhood. And I think that trumps someone that wants to, not spend the money to pick up garbage and take care of the property.
All right. What I was after here, it's one thing here. To implement such a program here, I think we need to amend or change some of the codes and the ordinance that they are in place.
I'm sorry,
to
I
implement-
misunderstood you.
To implement this here, to make it successful and to proceed accordingly.
I have
So-
provided you with a copy
Oh,
of
yeah.
the key ordinance elements of the abatement, which really is the heart of it. It also, I believe, explains the criteria for the behavioral piece as far as, what is clear and present danger and which are in which categories. There is a lot more to this program than I was going to try to pack into a presentation.
that
But
was-
all of our code is online. If you want to go and get our code, you're more than welcome to have it.
We got the 21 pages that you sent, so I read those, so, and that's, fully understand that, but
That's
I
section eight.
was,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
after that,
You will have to do
everybody
some-
to understand
We'll have
that-
to build some foundation
That-
to work the program, yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else, council? Councilman Raywald?
No, I just want to thank you very much, Bill. Since we first met, I've talked to virtually everybody I know in Davenport and Bettendorf. And said, have you noticed this? What do you know about it as far as you? And I've got nothing but universal positive remarks of how it's helped neighborhoods and increased property values, et cetera.
Thank you. I know there was a question out here, I don't know if you allow that or not, but, no. Okay.
Very good, Councilman Boone.
All right.
Appreciate your presence very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Moving right along, folks, item 4 on tonight's agenda, a city code review of Titles 7 and 14. Greg Monsager.
Thank you, Your Honor. 2 quick items tonight. And just a reminder, I haven't received any questions, but you certainly have time. Please shoot me those questions via email, and we'll place those on the agenda for discussion if you have questions as we go along. So just real quick tonight, we have chapters 7 and 14. At our next meeting, we'll have chapters 13 and 15. Short ones tonight, vehicle and traffic, Title 7. Police regulations appear in Title 6. Title 7 now includes a dedicated section exclusively for items relating to vehicle and traffic. Main changes include the items noted here, but specifically adding an abandoned vehicle chapter, adjusting notice to fine language and procedures for parking violations, again, mainly to comport with Iowa code. Most of those changes, as you've seen, have been to comport with changes in Iowa code. I'm going to jump down before going to Title 14. You'll note 2 items that have been added under the ATE ordinance changes, or 1 item that has been added and 1 item that we plan to add in as well. So item number 1 under definitions, that we need to add a definition of vehicle that is lacking in the current draft. You'll see that coming forward, and we'll certainly clarify that and make that available to council. And Section D, exceptions to owner liability, that item is actually covered under the definitions where it defines owner of the program. And this was done basically to better define who the owner of the vehicle is. So if a vehicle is being leased or rented, it defines the owner as the actual driver, not the company that owns the vehicle. So we made that clear, and that was based on a recent case, actually here in Muscatine County. So we've clarified that in the code. I'm going to jump back up to Title 14, and really there's no changes other than in Title 14 is a separate chapter on franchises. We have a separate title referring to the ordinance granting the franchises by reference rather than codifying the entire ordinance itself. Pretty simple chapter, and I think it's only 2 or 3 pages, so you should be able to breeze through that one relatively quickly. And that's really all I intended to point out. Again, this is just a handoff for council. The codes are attached and in the electronically in the packet for your review. And then plan is to jump into Titles 13 and 15, and then to have a summary discussion, answer questions that arise. So please start thinking about questions you might have, or as you go along and read those ordinances, submit those to me so we can answer them for everyone's benefit at a subsequent meeting. So that's really a short item tonight.
Any questions on that, council? Okay, everyone take a deep breath. Right back to Greg with the Wallview TIF review.
I hope somebody took minutes on that while I was talking. I'll come back and get it. We have another great opportunity tonight. You may remember Mr. Gordon Sevig and Wallview the TIF that was done, oh my, a little over a year ago now. It's up and operating. It was a 577,000 square foot facility. I believe it was the largest project in Iowa at the time. They're looking to add adjacent to that warehouse, a 300,000 square foot facility. You may also recall that as part of our TIF agreement, there was a minimum of 25 jobs. Last reported to us, that number was closer to 45, and we're looking at an additional 12 jobs as part of this project. There's no public infrastructure as part of this tax increment financing agreement. There were 2 streets that were dedicated to the city as part of the previous project. There's no public infrastructure as part of this project. We are proposing a 10-year TIF agreement, declining scale, with the following scale that's listed in your packet, with an estimated rebate of just under $2 million. The estimated minimum assessed value is at $9 million, although based on the current development, it's probably going to be a little bit higher than that in the end. Those are the real basic terms and conditions, but before going forward, as we typically do, I want to bring that to council questions and your consideration, see if there's any objection to proceeding to the next step, which is to put that agreement together and begin the legal process.
Well, let's see if there are any questions.
This will ultimately be to serve local industry, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, it does. The current distribution facility, you might notice the Kent distribution sign along Highway 61.
Do we have a number on what the available warehouse, usable warehouse space is in the city of Muscatine or in its close surrounding area, and what percentage being actually used?
So you're looking for
Vacancy rate.
under the vacancy.
Vacancy
yeah,
rate, yeah,
vacancy
there you
rate.
go, thank you.
Utilization.
Utilization. I know there's,
Warehouse. I don't know that we do. Greg, I don't know, put you on the spot. I don't know if you've got an idea at present.
okay. So I know that I sat on the county's assessor's board of review for 3 years, and there were several properties that I remember looking at that they were not usable under current warehousing standards. So they were vacant, but I wouldn't call them usable
Exactly.
for corporate needs warehousing. So aside from those, I'm just wondering what, if we're overbuilding.
It's my understanding, and I can certainly be corrected, that the current it's planned to use 100% of the current warehouse and approximately a half to two-thirds of the second warehouse with available space for future growth.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I think earlier tonight you mentioned that it would be an annual
Yes.
assessment or allocation towards TIF.
Each year, each of our recent TIF agreements have all been annual appropriation. That allows us to count the annual rebate rather than the entire amount of the contract or the agreement against our debt limit. And if you may recall, that's been an issue with the legislature the past couple of years as well. There's been a push to remove that ability from cities, our ability to use annual appropriation. I think that would be we certainly wouldn't be doing TIF agreements if that's the case. It would certainly be limiting our ability to do so.
Very true.
So you're looking for a consensus.
If there's no objection, my plan would be to proceed and bring the process forward.
Any objections? You have it.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, item 6, review of agreement with Muscom. That's you too, Greg.
I guess, what do you? You got the chief back there. I'm sure he could put him on the spot. No. In your packet, you have 3 documents. You have the existing agreement for Muscom, which I'm going to basically skip over. That's in there simply for your information. The next item is a draft that incorporates some early comments by city staff. And the third document is a draft, or excuse me, not a draft, but a copy of the Scott County, or the Scott Emergency Communications Center agreement for your information. You may recall this is item that was recently reviewed by the county. It's also been reviewed by Muscom as well, and it was their recommendation to forward it on to the elected bodies for discussion. So briefly, in general concepts, we're looking at placing the funding for communications on the countywide levy rather than on our individual levies. And 2, we're looking to move forward to a countywide communication system, with consistent standard operating procedures. So that's kind of the overarching goal with this draft or this proposed agreement. In the a couple items I wanted to point out in the draft agreement, 2 items specifically. The term and dissolution is really the key items from my perspective. Mainly, we wanted to identify what happens to the equipment once or if down the road for some reason this would not work out. The draft agreement indicated or did not really address that, or it would stay with the agency. We wanted to include some, I guess, more of a safety clause in there that whatever entity that equipment was purchased for, the equipment would stay with that entity. Otherwise, the agency dissolves and you're stuck with a $2 million bill for computers and communications equipment or whatever it might be at the time. So the draft that you have before you certainly needs some work, and I'm not saying this is by any means a final draft. I guess my goal here tonight was to come forward and to see if this is something that the council is interested in proceeding with. And there's really 2 other main issues that I'd like to identify and get some direction on. One is the makeup of the board. The original draft excluded elected officials, and it was made up of staff only. And then from there on, it went to the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors who had budgetary authority and would place it on the countywide levy. Early discussion is whether or not that should remain should have a different makeup, I guess. I guess the numbers really aren't important for tonight's discussion, but if that should be a made up of both elected and staff officials, similar to the Scott County plan, or if you're comfortable with having basically a staff-only board, which is Muscatine County, city staff, and the various members of the police and fire departments within the county. Second major item is or has to do with budgetary authority and where that budgetary authority lies, and whether that lies wholly with the Muscom board or if it lies with the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. And that's really kind of a key point here is whether or not the budget approved by the board is the budget that goes forward, or if the Muscatine County would have discretion to amend that budget as approved by the board. And those are some of the key concepts that I would need direction on before feeling comfortable negotiating a contract on the city's behalf. That's kind of a down and dirty summary. Chief, Jerry, Brett, either one of you have any comments, or Lori with Muscom? Anything you'd like to add? Did I miss anything? It's kind of a brief, those are the,
Yeah, Chief, you want to come to the mic? Thank you.
At this point, like I said, Greg kind of described what we were talking about. One of the issues that I see with the Muscom board at this point is there's only 4 people on it. There's 2 from the city, 2 from the county. I think if you're going to keep elected officials on that, you need to maybe have a 5th person on that board. So and maybe from outside the city or the county, maybe a West Liberty person or Wilton or somebody else. But obviously that's you guys' choice as to who you want to have on that board. So either way, I think this needs to go through. Obviously there's some cleaning up of the whole thing, but I do feel that it needs to go through.
Mayor, I have some comments to make. I've sat on this board. I was railroaded into being chairman of the board initially when we established and worked towards joint communications within the county and the city. It was a rough 9 months, and I didn't have labor pains, but it was pretty painful at times. We had a technical advisory committee at that time when we were setting this up. The current agreement is what was developed for the most part initially 10 years ago. It was altered 2 or 3 years ago with the funding source being a countywide levy, so it made it more equitable for all citizens of the county. I think the goal here is to make the commission more inclusive rather than being just city and county. And what I would propose is, after looking at the Scott County agreement, it really looked like what I would like to see ours look like. Whether we have 2 county and 2 city and then we add some people, or we have 1 county, 1 city, and we add Wilton, West Liberty, and then we have a rotating member from the outlying incorporated areas, the other cities in the county, being on whether it's a 5-member board or a 7-member board, but we need to have it an odd number. So the proposal, in essence, that's being brought forth eliminates what they call the Muscom board. It's the Muscatine Joint Communications Commission. They're, in essence, eliminating that. And I don't think it needs to be eliminated. I think we need to keep the directing board, which is made up of the chief, police chief, sheriff, and is he the EMS coordinator?
Director.
There you go. The director. And they rotate, one of them being a chairperson of that directing board. They're pretty much responsible for overseeing the day-to-day operations of joint communications, and Lori, if she has questions, she can go to any one of these 3 people, whoever the chairperson is. I do agree that it would be nice to have a technical advisory committee made up of the group that, in essence, is in the proposed agreement, which is the fire chief, the police chief, the outlying fire chiefs, police chiefs. So you get this group of people that are the actual users, and they make recommendations then to the commission on what they need. Moving towards having communications equipment purchased by an organization, with the funding through a levy, countywide levy, and then assigning that equipment to various agencies. That way everybody's on the same playing field. Right now we have issues. The city's on the 800 megahertz system again. The county is on a different system. They can't talk on their walkie-talkies, their portables. they get into their cars, and then they have multiple radios to operate, to get interdepartmental communications, or between the various agencies. So that in itself is a safety issue for the public safety personnel, and I think that needs to be addressed. Whether we do any other changes at all, we need to address that. The funding source that Greg was talking about, other than the countywide levy, is on page 5 of the Scott board. It says Board of Directors shall transmit a budget to the EMA board without modification will include the budget transmitted to the County Board of Supervisors by a particular date. Basically, what it's saying is the Joint Communications Board, with the help of the Advisory Committee and the Directing Board, establishes what the budget is going to be for that group, and the county's job then is to assign whatever levy it needs to do in order to fund that budget. They don't have the authority to, well, we're crossing this out, line item veto, whatever you want to call it. They don't have the opportunity to start whacking things out of it that they feel are unnecessary. So that's my feelings on this. I think in order to be more inclusive, I think we need to include more people. At the time this was established, the question had come up, okay, what do we do with Welton and West Liberty and Conesville and Nichols and so forth? And the county representatives at that point said, don't worry about them, we will take care of them. And so we dropped it. But we were going to add, or had considered adding, representatives from those communities. And over the years, it's kind of rolled a little bit. They were paying the other cities were paying the county for the county's portion of the subsidy, the 55%, 45% by the city of Muscatine, to fund joint communications. So they were kicking, all these other cities were kicking into the county so the county could pay their portion. When it went to a joint levy or an overall levy, the cities could take the money that they had budgeted for joint communications out of their budget, because now it's on a county-wide level and everybody was paying the same amount based on their tax evaluations. So I think it's moving in the right direction. I'm just concerned that it doesn't move at this point in the wrong direction. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, Bill, anyone else?
Mayor, is there an a date on here when this document expires? Or does it continue until it's replaced?
Are you talking the current one?
Correct.
It continues
Yeah,
until
it just continues until we
isn't
redo it.
changed.
It's evergreen.
Or terminate it.
Or terminated, that's correct.
Thank you.
So if we do nothing at this point, it just stays the way it is. It just keeps moving the way it currently is orchestrated.
Jeanette?
Which is not what I think it needs to have, personally. I think it needs to change a little bit.
I think the goals are laudable. You've got, consistent communications, consistent equipment, and one funding source. It's just the devil's in the details. We need to get down and put a draft together, and I was looking for a little direction here.
Jeanette, any comment?
No, I don't have.
Salma?
Nothing.
So just to clarify, within this group, then the individual needs of the cities, the different cities, or the way it's working out, or the way you hope it's moving, is that their needs then are forwarded to the county, and then the levy is based upon the
Right.
individual needs? Is that?
Well, individual needs basically end up being the needs of the group.
Yeah, kind of collectively.
Collectively, the various agencies, whether they're volunteer or professional fire, whether it's police in Muscatine, large department, little department, all of them collectively come together as part of this advisory committee and said, this is what we need, these are the minimum standards for our radios and so forth, and this is our goal, and we need to, this is how we're going to get there and what it's gonna cost. And
Yeah, and it's.
User group, huh?
Yeah.
I called it the technical advisory.
There's 7 people in that user group. I think you mentioned most of
Right.
them.
User group is another word, I don't care. Call them whatever. The team.
With all the drafts we've had, I can't keep them straight either, Scott.
Phil, we've heard your opinion. Mike?
Greg, I agree, it's important to figure out how this may have to be dissolved. It's
Yes.
very easy to go into a partnership without thought of how do we get the hell out of it.
That was absent, and that's why I've included some initial draft changes for that. Yes.
Wise, that's all, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Council, let's move on to item 7, comments, beginning with Councilman Raywalt.
No, sir, thank you.
Phil?
I've said enough.
And Scott?
I have nothing, thank you.
Osama?
I have none, thank you.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Ned?
Nothing, thank you.
Great.
Joint communications.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
And I have nothing. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meeting is adjourned.
Really condensed.
I got you.